Hi, this is Joe Bolen, and welcome to learning about VisualBasic.net. Well, we're going to work on our text editor project today and add a little bit more functionality to the printing process. Initially, we just did an overview with printing, and I introduced the print document component into the program, and then we showed how to use the print document print method to create a very simple output to the printer. Well, we're going to add to this project now the PrintDIalog component so we can select a printer. Up till now, we used just the default printer. Now we're going to give the user the option of which printer to select from for printing their output of their document. But before we get started, let's take a look at our location where all our documentation is so that you can go out and study it later on. The main code that I'm using throughout this series, and also for all of my VisualBasic.net YouTube tutorials, is out at pastebin.com/u/jboh. So you can go out there and look at the code, study it more in detail after the video, and even download it if you'd like to use it to modify it for your own use. Then also at the top of the page is the link to Imager, where the text editor project that we're working on's main screen is, so you can get an idea of the form of the text editor. And lastly, you can go out to YouTube at Bolen Presents to see not only the video series about the text editor project we're working on, but to see all my videos that I have on VisualBasic.net. So if you like, stop your video at this point in time and write down the links, and then restart the video, and afterwards go out and take a look at the documentation so that you can develop more your understanding about what you're learning in today's lesson. Well, let's go to our code for today, and I have Visual Studio up with the Windows Designer showing, and I'm going to drop down on the menu tool strip to under our file option, and we're going to be working in this area of the print option of our menu strip. It is also part of our button on the tool strip. So we're going to look at that event to modify it. And what I'd like to show you first of all is the code that we currently have associated with that event. So let me go back to the code here. And you'll see that in this event we've coded in the last video, we've added the print document component, and we have the print method being utilized. And we've surrounded that in a try-catch block so that if we end up not having a valid printer, that we can capture that error message and prevent the program from stopping and allow the user to gracefully exit out and maybe reset the printer. Also, we might have general errors that could happen, and we want to also catch those errors as well. So this is the basic area, but this is using the default printer that we have set up for the computer. Now we may want to have a different printer for our output, and so we want to bring in the PrintDIalog component so we can change printers. So let's go to the designer, and I'm going to go to the toolbox, and I've already selected the area for printing, and we're going to bring in the PrintDIalog into our program. And I'm just going to double click it because it'll go to the component tray. And what I'd like you to see here is here's our PrintDIalog component I've just added in. It has a number of different properties that we can set for this, and we'll do this in our code. You'll see where I've set the properties before we issue the ShowDialog to bring it up, and then we'll use those properties that might be changed by the user and retrieve them and then use it for our printing. So we've got the dialog in place. So let's now go back to our code, And I'm going to quickly put in place and change everything in here. I'm going to replace it with a little bit more robust code to add to the PrintDIalog. So I'm going to copy over, and we'll paste right in here the code, and we'll talk about it. Okay, what I have done is I'm using the width reserved word, which means I'm going to be working mainly with the PrintDIalog 1 component that we just brought in. Now, that dialog component we're going to use, and you'll see a lot of just dot settings, but it means I'm working with PrintDIalog 1 printer settings, document settings, allow some page settings. All those are part of working with the width, in width block of code. It makes it a little bit more efficient and reduces the redundancy of typing in the information. Now, what we want to do first of all is initialize our PrintDIalog before we show it. And what I do is I come in and I set the Print Document 1 printer settings to the Dialogs printer settings, and also the PrintDIalog document is now set to the Print Document 1 that we're using. Now, one of the things that I've added here that you don't necessarily have to have is I'm allowing the user to select a range of pages to be printed. Instead of printing from the beginning to the end, they might choose to print maybe page 5 and 6 only, and not all the pages of their document. So this is one of the areas that you can leave out or comment out if you'd like, but I'm going to code later on. You'll see later in my code how I've utilized taking advantage of allowing the user to select a range to be printed. Now, we've initialized the dialog box up to this point, and now we're coming into the area where we're actually doing the show dialog. So I'm basically saying PrintDIalog 1 show dialog. And if the user ends up hitting OK, we'll come back with a dialog result OK, and we're going to process the code within the if statement. So we come in and the user has selected the settings and hit OK. And at that point, I want to take the PrintDIalog 1's printer settings that was perhaps changed by the user and now replace them to the PrintDIalog printer settings. And then here's the code we had before in place. This is the part that will actually do the printing. We do the PrintDIalog or Print Document 1 print method, and that'll fire off and run. So all we've added is this little section up above initializing the PrintDIalog component, and then we do the show dialog of the PrintDIalog. If the person then hits OK on the setup, not cancel, we'll then take the settings and set them and then begin our print process. So let's watch this work. Okay, I've got it fired up, and this one is a test only type of mode, and I don't need a document in place. So I'm going to come over and hit File, Print, and we should see the PrintDIalog box pop up. And there it is. And you'll see I have a number of printers. My default printer is my Canon printer, but let's say I want to come over here and change it to my PDF printer. Well, I can select that. Also, I can go to a file if I want. And because I've allowed the user the ability to change pages, I can change that selection as well. Well, right now we don't have the code in place to handle different page range, so I'll leave it as all, and we'll go to the print driver of the PDF printer. And so I'll hit print, and it'll print, and our print driver came up, and I'm going to say create PDF, and I'll just save it as is, and you'll see that my test document has come in place. And we basically saw this in our last video. So what we've given the user the ability to do is when we hit the file option and they hit print, they can change the printer they might want to go with, or they could hit cancel and skip out of printing altogether, and will later on allow the functionality for the user to change the range of pages to be printed. So that is what our lesson brought to us today, and I hope that you'll code that into all your printing process. Instead of going directly to the print document print method, give the user the option to select a printer they might want. Perhaps they do not need to print it out on hard copy paper, but only have it as a PDF file, like I like many times. That gives them the option to change the printer. Also, it means they don't always have to use the default printer that they have set up for their computer. They can select other printer options. So remember to bring in the PrintDIalog component into your program and add it to the print area. And the only difference in our code was that we coded around it so that we had the print document 1 print statement, which actually does the printing, but we brought up the dialog box first, we initialized it, brought it up, and then set the document to the settings that the user had selected. So it's pretty easy to code in, and I hope that you'll go out there and learn how to do that and bring that into your printing process. We're going to take a look at Print Preview next in our next video, so come back and watch. Until that time, get your hands dirty in the code, go out to pastebin/u/jboh and study the code so you understand it. Maybe bring it into your own project that you might be working on so you can utilize bringing in the PrintDIalog component into your printing process. So take care.